Welcome back to the Scene Editor in depth. So let's go back to our scene. I'll double click that. And now I'm sure this looks familiar because this was the end of the last lecture. What we're going to look at here is, like I said, the inspector and the library and some of these buttons and functionality up here. In order to do that, I need to make an actor. And don't worry, some of this stuff is going to go by quickly when I make this actor and perform a couple functions on it. Don't worry about that right now because in some following lectures we're going to be talking about actors in depth, how to set them up, and behaviors and all of this stuff in depth. So if this little bit right here seems confusing, don't worry about it. You'll understand it all before you're done with this class. So I'm going to add an actor. When you have an actor and you want to put it on your stage, all you do is click it, drag it, let it go. Now it's on my stage. I can drag it around. I can, move it over here. I could move it off screen if I wanted to. This black area is the actual screen of your device. So if I put this actor here, outside of the black area, it wouldn't actually show on the device. But you can use this. This is like the pasteboard in Adobe Illustrator or other programs. You can put things out here that you're going to use later. And you'll see as we go through and actually make games, all of this stuff will make a lot more sense. So I'm going to just drag that on there to touch a little bit. And in this actor, I'm going to quickly add a behavior. Again, don't be freaked out by this not making any sense right now. This is just for me to demo the scene editor a little bit so you can start to understand that. So now that I have this actor, these buttons up here, this preview button, these play and stop buttons, and this little ghost button, I guess, for lack of a better term. It says show initial state of your scene. When you're developing a game, you're going to want to be testing it all the time. Every time you add something, change something, you want to test that and make sure it works properly. Because if it doesn't, you don't want to go on and change 10 other things and have 7 out of 10 things not work right. You want to make sure they work right before you move on to your next element. So let's say I just added this actor, and what I set it up to do is just drop. It'll fall from the top of the screen off the bottom. I want to make sure that works right. There's a couple different ways to do that. I can press this play button here, and it will play right in the scene editor in the stage area, and it dropped off screen just as I expected it to. I can press stop and it comes back. When it's playing, I can pause it. If you want to pause and check something else out, you can do that. Play again, and it finishes its action. This show initial state button, let me play it. See how there's no ghost image left behind? If you click it and press play, it leaves a ghost image of everything. And that's helpful for when you're playing. You can tell where, if you had 10 different elements on here, you could see where they started and compare that to maybe where they finish or what happened. And that just helps you troubleshoot or make things work properly. And like I said, that played right here in the whole stage area, the whole scene editor. If you want to get rid of all this extraneous information so it's kind of not bothering you, you don't have to see it, you can press this preview button here, and you get essentially a full screen preview. The same thing happens. You can press replay. It resets everything. Replay. Pause, just like in the previous one, but it takes away all of that other extraneous information. And also it adds down here a scenes browser. If you had 10 scenes or 20 scenes, they'd be listed here, and you could jump between them and preview them individually as you go. You can turn this off, the scene browser down here, by clicking that, and then you really get a nice full screen preview of your game. Full screen in the sense that it takes up your whole development area, but it's still only the size of the device that you're going to be working on. When you're done here, just press the back button, and it takes you back to the stage. Now within this inspector, that was the actor's inspector. There's also an inspector area called attributes, and these are a few default attributes that every scene starts with. There's a name of the scene, there's time, display size is literally the pixel dimensions of the active area, and there's a thing called actor tags, which we'll get into again in a future lecture. And then there's a bunch of device settings which go hand in hand with this project info. So a lot of those things are automatically set depending on the device you pick. And you have access to all of these while you're developing a game. We likely won't be looking at any of them in this beginner class. That's more certainly intermediate or advanced, which I would like to do classes on those in the future. So there will be an opportunity to learn more about these. But just know that it's there, and the more advanced you get, you can do more advanced things with your games and the devices that they play on. Now, in the Scenes Inspector, again, a lot of these attributes are set by your platform choice. The 568 by 320 represents the width and the height of the play area. If I had chosen, or when I had chosen iPad, this would be 1024 by 768. So some of these are set depending on the device you pick in the platform. You do have control over these. This color is the background color of the stage. So if you want to change that, for example, you can click it, you get a standard color picker, and let's say I want my background to be a really dark green. So I can just pick that and select it, and then my background of my overall scene changes. Now, if you wanted to match a specific color, say from Photoshop or one of your graphics, you can actually put in RGB values right here and do that. A couple other settings. There's a gravity setting for when we get into physics. The physics engine in GameSalad, you can set up gravity. And there's also an option to wrap your screen. And what screen wrapping is, if you remember, let's say the game Asteroids, the player's ship would start in the middle and fly. And when it flies off the top, it comes in at the bottom, or side to side. Let me show you an example of that. There's a game that I published on the iTunes App Store, which is essentially an Asteroids clone. So if I go to level 1, and these are all the scenes. Look at all the scenes for that game. There's a start screen, controls, credits, upgrade, pause, all the game screens. So you can see you get a lot of scenes in a game as you move along and develop it more in depth. So let's go to level 1, and I'll show you what wrap is. I'm going to click preview. So I can fly the ship, and what it's going to do is wrap from the top to the bottom. And now I can wrap from the left to the right, and all the asteroids do the same thing. So that's what wrap is. Let me stop that. It's got distracting music. So let's go back. So there's a lot of options. You can create all kinds of games in GameSalad. You can create games like that one where it wraps. You can create side scrollers where the scene scrolls right and left, up and down, and your character runs around. You could create single screen games like what? Like maybe Fruit Ninja, where it's just one screen and you're tapping on the screen for different events to happen. You could create word games like Words with Friends that are essentially one screen. So there's all kinds of options in this. Now another option under Scene is Layers. And that's just like Photoshop. You're going to have a bunch of actors on any one scene, and they have a certain stacking order. And the Layers palette is where you control that. I'm going to add a second actor, just so you can see how this works. I'm going to add actor 2. I'm going to color it a different color. Let's color it red. That ought to be kind of hard on the eyes. Maybe not. Let's see. So if I make this really large, and then drag this, let's say this is my player, and the red is supposed to be the ground. I want the player on top of the red ground. But right now it's behind. So what you would want to do is go to your scene, go to Layers, and then it's going to list every actor in your scene. I want actor 1, which is the white actor, on top of the red actor. So I drag it up there, and now you'll see that the white actor is above the red actor. You can also create groups of actors in here. So I'm going to call this Players and drag actor 1 to that. And then I can drag that up above background. So as I added more player actors, maybe I would put coins in there, or who knows what. But you can keep things grouped. So you could have all of your background actors in a background. You could have all of your player actors in a player's layer. You could have all of your scoring or interface elements in an interface layer, and so on. So it really helps you organize your game as they get more complex. And let's take a look again at this game, Neon Asteroid Blasters. And you can see that they get complex fairly quickly. Before I developed this game, I thought, oh, asteroids, that's a fairly simple game to develop. And in the grand scheme of things, it probably is. But let's take a look at the layers for this one scene. I have a fade to black layer, which has a whole bunch of stuff in. I have an interface layer, which has a whole bunch of stuff in. That's these buttons here. There is an actors with a whole bunch of different game actors, special effects, and the background. So a fairly simple game still has a lot of elements to it. Let's go back to our game. Now let's take a quick look at the libraries palette down here. We're just going to take a quick look again because all of this is going to be covered in more depth in future lectures. But what this is, you have a behaviors library, and these are all the actions that actors can perform in your game. This is GameSalad's scripting. It's their programming, but you don't really have to learn programming to do it because it's all drag and drop. And you'll drag these elements onto your game and just pick options, and then they will do what you tell them to do. So these are the standard behaviors that you'll get. Everybody who downloads the free version of GameSalad has all of these. So when you look at this, you'll have all of the same stuff that I have right here, and this is all we're going to use in this class. Now, I am a pro member of GameSalad, so I have this extra pro section, which has the extra pro behaviors in that you get as a paid member. You can have ads in your game, you can do in-app purchases in your game, you can connect to Twitter in your game. There's lots of options when you want to upgrade to that. You get a lot of extra stuff. There's also this custom area, which starts out empty, but you can add behaviors to this. If you build a really complex behavior in your game and you don't want to have to rebuild it over and over again, you can add it here and then just have drag and drop use of it. So that's great. And then images, when you click on the images library, right now it's empty, but when you import images in here, they'll be added. Same thing with sounds. It's just a holding area for organization of your behaviors, images, and sounds. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to clean up our game a little bit. I added this stuff, I just threw it in just for the sake of demo. So I'm going to delete these actors and set the background back to black. So we'll be back to default for our next lecture. So that's it for this lecture. Tune in for the next one. We're going to dive into the actors area in a lot of depth. We're going to add some actors. We'll be bringing in an image to make an actor with an image. And we'll really be digging into the nuts and bolts of the actor area.